again I am coming to the legislation part and legalization parts of that particular incident. So primarily, definitely the government have to take some actions, and such kind of action should be there. Definitely people should have to take some actions. What kind of action that have to be taken by the people?
I think people have to make themselves aware of the actually fact that apart from voting in 5 years once, they have lot of rights. I am sitting here in Pune, you are interviewing me. Now our Pune Municipal Corporation has agreed that 30% of the budget allocation would be with the ward sabhas. Secondly, the ward sabhas are authorized to prepare ward level environmental status reports, and it is expected, this is all on statute books, that the ward sabhas would take the lead and they would prepare these reports. This could easily be done if the schools and colleges, the students and teachers just they are doing environmental education, other projects. Part of that work, they could easily prepare good environment status report in every ward. And then the ward sabha, they are active a little bit. They could suggest budget allocation which would be geared towards protecting the environment as they wish based on these studies, rather than take up all sorts of destructive construction activities in their wards. But the ward sabhas are not, I mean the citizens at the ground level are not taking advantage of these powers that they have. So what the citizens should do is to wake up and take advantage of these powers. There is Biodiversity Act, which actually empowers that every local body will have the Biodiversity Management Committee, not of elected members, they can play a role, but of other concerned citizens. And those biodiversity management committees can take a lot of good decisions. But those are not activated anywhere. I mean, on paper they will show, but actually with people participating, this is not happening. Then people should demand positive incentives for environmentally positive action. For instance, in our Western Ghats Ecology Expert Panel report, we have specifically recommended that under the Biodiversity Management Act, if in any area either the crop varieties also, farmers varieties or natural vegetation are protected, the panchayat should be given so-called conservation service charge kind of payment. Or we have suggested, Australia has a very good scheme we should follow, that if the farmers act in such ways as to increase the organic matter content of their soil, then based on proper monitoring, they are given incentive payments. We have suggested that you should not simply declare that you should have only organic farming, but it should be complemented by such incentive payments, and India can use these to ask for also international support. For carbon sequestration, funds are coming. They should go for such schemes to the farmers on the ground, not currently being used by government machinery to actually put up exotic plantations as is being done. So I think there are many things, and I hope people will look at our report in Malayalam. At least fortunately a Malayalam translation prepared by Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad is available. So look at it, and these specific suggestions where farmer citizens can claim what powers they have. In a democracy they ought to be able to exercise. So they should generate pressure that they will exercise these powers, and they should also claim, ask for this kind of positive incentives. See, organic farming again, it should not be by some ministries, agricultural ministries in the state or whoever enforcing organic farming, but let it also be coupled to such incentive payments. Perhaps people will happily take it up. So this is kind of, both these kind of things people can ask for and should ask for.
And what's again? Repeatedly I'm asking you, and you have many times you have stated the need of implementing Forest Dwellers Conservation, Forest Dwellers Right Act, and such kind of generative act that can reduce the regimentary control over the forest. What kind of significance it exists now?
Now in Kerala, very little has been done, but fortunately, in one district in Maharashtra called Gadchiroli, where I have been also associated for a long time, more than 1,000 villages, the Gram Sabhas have been granted this community forest resources, totaling several lakh hectares. So on the ground I am in touch, and as is to be expected, because now people see that good management would lead to benefits for them. They are in fact adopting very good management practices, and the forest cover, a recent study by one of my colleagues has shown that the remote sensing imagery, satellite imagery shows that between after 2010, when this act began to be implemented in this district, wherever there is community rights given, there has been a improvement in the vegetation. And on the ground we can also see that, but satellites also clearly bring this out. The expectation in our report, our report called for implementation of Forest Right Act all over Western Ghats, and said that it is likely to lead to more prudent management at the ground level. At least this experience of Gadchiroli, and it is not just one village, as I said, over 1,000 villages, shows that yes, that can happen and that should happen. On the contrary, as you know, under governmental control, our report also is giving details. In Maharashtra, lot of forest destruction has happened with the blessing of forest department by windmills. There are cases, you know, really shameful cases where the range forest officers have reported that these windmills are imposing this damage. Their bosses have overruled them, sent in completely different reports that windmills are doing no damage, and one of the rangers said, "Oh, poor fellow is sick, now he is being victimized by his bosses." Now this is happening, and I have personally gone, stayed in slept on ground in fact in the primary school in some of those villages where this is happening, and gone up those hills. The windmill people are illegally captured those hills. They would not allow my vehicle to go, but I could walk, so I left the vehicle back and they couldn't stop me walking. I went up and checked, and the windmills have imposed, including landslides by roads leading to the windmills. And all this is being hushed up by the forest department. So, when the people have taken charge, they are not allowing these things to happen, because those landslides are in fact affecting their agricultural fields. If the Gram Sabhas were actually in charge, where in these areas also they should have been, then this would certainly have been stopped by Gram Sabhas. It is being promoted by the authorities, including forest authorities.
And I am coming to the passion, which is the passion that you have and I have, that is about elephants. So, definitely you have started the study about elephant corridors in Kerala and all these places. Recent incidents are coming that man and elephant conflicts are recent reports in Kerala. Yeah. What is the cause of this particular issue?
I think there are two things. I mean, I have not started recently, but I did. I mean, as early as 1973-74 actually. I initiated elephant census. There were no clear details of the numbers where they are. So through our Indian Institute of Science, we conducted elephant censuses and demarcating these corridors and so on. But then my colleague, who was my PhD student, Dr. Sukumar, who is now country's world's leading elephant expert, he has followed it up. So what you are referring to is really probably due to Dr. Sukumar's initiative. Now, Dr. Sukumar and I also feel that to wildlife conservation, you should not take a rigid approach. In no way you should take a rigid approach, but certainly not also in wildlife conservation. He says that his statistics, he has been collecting, recently I talked to him, data on damage by elephants and especially killing of people by elephants in the country. He said there are about only 1/5 at the most of the elephants are responsible for this. Overall there has been protection, so elephant numbers have at least doubled in last 25 years. But the conflicts have increased far more than doubled. In terms of, if you measure, let's say, in terms of people killed by elephants, it has gone up some 6-7 times. He says only this small proportion of elephants are responsible. Now, you should not take a rigid view that no, we should not capture wild elephants, we should, all sorts of arguments. He says that we have to identify these problem elephant populations or individuals also. Now they have a lot of information. Elephants are anyway easy to recognize as individuals. They should be captured and there should be a system. There is still demand for tame elephants and they should be fed into that system. You should not simply say that no. Or this wild pig. See, wild pig, there is no question that it is in no way threatened wild animal. So, there is no justification to my mind to giving the kind of protection, rigid protection that is being given to wild pigs today. A lot of people in Vaidan also have told me that and all over that wild pigs are a great menace to farmers and the kind of protection that is given to wild pigs is increasing their, so to say, conflict with this natural world. Wild pigs are a group that should be controlled. There should be regulated harvests of wild pigs and this is good protein. I also enjoy eating wild pig meat, frankly. And you know, regulated harvest work, you have seen these hills here. They are under the control of, a lot of it is under defense departments, this Defense Research and Development Organization. And it is a wooded area fortunately and there are wild pigs there. And I have a friend who is working actually in the fire fighting force there. So, he invited me, he said, look, we harvest wild pigs regularly, after all there are so many of them. And I have a very nice pork dish and he invited me for dinner. So, this kind of regulated harvest is happening right here in Pune city also. And in the countryside they are damaging farms and orchards and all, and you are not allowing any proper control. And in Maharashtra they say, oh, if you kill, then you must invite a forest officer and you cannot eat that meat. You must burn it or bury it, and all sorts of, I think, absurd regulations. I think the wildlife conservation movement should have a rational approach, and you just ask which country in the world has largest wild animal population happily living with people. It is Norway. I have gone to Norway, I have stayed there many times because Norwegians are very interested in nature conservation issues. So, they have permits, they all hunt moose, which is the big deer there, and many other animals on a regulated basis. The wildlife is increased over years in Norway and it is people managing them through regulated harvests that the wildlife has prospered, not through some bureaucratic regulation against any hunting whatsoever. So, we must think of, and with elephants certainly you should identify the rogue, so to say, elephants, and you should capture. Sukumar says we can prepare a proper plan. The conflicts could be reduced very substantially by taking specific limited action.
Okay, and again our latest tiger census says the number of tigers were increased. As we know, the top predator number increases, the forest cover increases. Is it real?
No, I cannot say. See, I was made a member of the Tiger Task Force in 2005 when there was this outcry because Sarishka, they were saying, had some 18 tigers and no tourist could ever see a tiger. So they appointed a task force. So Prime Minister's office, in fact, and I was a member. I examined their data, and Sarishka in particular, Ranthambore, several sanctuaries. And Sarishka, I think, is the one, it's in the Tiger Task Force report, where I went out of the way to talk to the guards there. And guards said, sir, they are only saying all these 20 tigers because they want to keep up the show, but we will show you our field diaries. In the field diaries, the guards had made estimates of the numbers according to them as they patrolled. And they said, our diaries all say that 2 years ago the tigers went extinct. Still, according to official estimate, 20 tigers were roaming the forest. So the whole forest wildlife and forest cover, all that statistics is of very dubious quality. So I cannot say exactly what the situation is. And exactly the reverse happens. In Ranthambore, they increased the number of tigers. In Goa, there are certainly tigers. Actually, you see that picture. It is from Chorla Ghat in Goa. One friend of mine has taken it. A forest department census shows no tigers because the tigers will come in the way of giving more and more permission to mining. So they have this bogus census in Goa showing no tigers, bogus census in Ranthambore where there are, Sarishka, where there were no tigers showing 20 or some such. So I don't know, I don't believe in these figures at all.
Again, I am coming to Kerala. Again, I am coming to your issue, the report which carries the Western Ghats Conservation Authority. What kind of action that has to be immediately taken by the government? That's your suggestion, I can tell you that.
No. See, our it is not in a sense panel suggestion, because if you see the terms of reference issued to us in 2010, say that there will be a Western Ghat whatever environment authority, I forget the exact term used, constituted, and our report should say what the authority should do and provide guidelines. So in our report there is very specific suggestions that the authority should act in the following fashion, where again we have emphasized it should not become a centralized bureaucratic imposition kind of operation, but through proper feedback from ground level it should take certain measures, and we have suggested a number of measures such as proper control over land use and looking at the sensitivity levels, deciding on proper land use and so on. So as I said, it is laid out in our report because of the mandate itself said that it was part of our panel's duty to suggest how this authority should be constituted and operate. So they should certainly go ahead and establish that and follow those suggestions.
And coming to you, a very personal question. Will you come again to Kerala to convince our people that you are right? Absolutely, we know that you are right. And will you come again to convince them?
I am coming again to Kerala on September 3rd, actually 4th. At Kottakkal, I have been invited to give a talk. So I will be in Kerala. I'll perhaps stay till 6th or 7th. So 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th or so. I am definitely in Kerala. I do not know whether I am going to convince them, but yes, I am very happy to come to Kerala. I enjoy being in Kerala, and I have, as I said, since 1973 or so, you know, Dr. Vijayan. So here, Vijayan and I initiated this elephant census on ground. So Vijayan and I came to Wayanad probably in 73 or 74, spent a lot of time there, and since that time I have spent a lot of time in Kerala and I have always enjoyed it, and I will continue to come, but whether by coming, actually I am not able to now undertake travel as much as I would have liked to, but still I will come, and I don't know if that I am going to be able to convince people coming there, But I will certainly try. I don't know how effective it can be.
So thank you very much for being with us, sir.
You are most welcome, most welcome. Thank you.